The night on Carthon 9 was heavy with smoke and shadows. Torches burned in the alien marketplace, their light falling on cages made of steel and bone. The air smelled of rust, sweat, and fear. Every corner of the market was alive with cruel voices, merchants shouting, buyers laughing, and slaves crying in silence. Among the chained rows sat a girl. She was not human. Her skin carried a soft silver glow under the torchlight, her hair falling like strands of dark glass. Her eyes were wide, but they no longer carried hope. She had been in chains too long to hope. Around her neck was a collar, heavy and sharp, pulling her forward like a captured animal. Merchants shouted at passing buyers. Strong arms for the mines, cheap price. Fighters for the arenas. Exotic servants, trained and silent. But when they spoke of her, the tone changed. This one? Weak. Too small. Not worth much. The girl lowered her head. She was tired of being displayed, tired of hearing herself called useless. She did not even resist anymore. She had learned that resistance only brought pain. A new group of buyers moved closer. They were not like the others. Most were aliens with scaled skin, long teeth, or glowing eyes. But among them stood one figure different from all, a human. Humans were rare in this part of the galaxy, but everyone knew their reputation. Some said humans were dangerous conquerors. Others said they were clever traitors. To the girl, it made no difference. Human or alien, a master was still a master. The merchant laughed as the human stopped in front of her cage. This one is weak, broken. You don't want her, but... He grinned, showing yellow teeth. For 10 credits, she is yours. The crowd laughed. 10 credits was nothing. 10 credits could not buy a drink in most spaceports. A slave sold for that price was less than worthless. The girl's chest tightened. 10 credits. That was her value now. Less than the tools, less than food scraps. She braced herself. Whoever bought her would want to squeeze the last bit of use from her, work her until she collapsed. Maybe worse. The human did not laugh. He did not bargain. His voice was calm. I'll take her. The merchant blinked. You really want this one? Yes, the human said. He placed the credits down without another word. The girl stared. Nobody ever bought without bargaining. Masters always wanted more for less. But this one, why did he not argue? The merchant shoved the key into the cage and unlocked her chains. She's yours now. Don't bring her back when she fails you. He spat on the ground and turned to the next buyer. The girl stepped out slowly. Her legs were weak, shaking. The collar still pressed against her neck, the chain hanging from it dragging on the dirt. She did not look at the human. She only thought of what came next. Pain, orders, commands. The human took the chain in his hand, but gently, almost as if he did not want to hurt her. His eyes met hers for the first time. They were steady, not cruel. Come, he said softly. She followed because she had no choice, but in her heart she prepared. She had been sold, again. And this time, for only 10 credits. That meant her life was almost worthless. That meant her suffering would soon be worse. The crowd whispered as they left the market. Some laughed at the human. A fool wasting money. What will he do with such trash? Others looked confused. Why would a human buy such a weak, broken slave? The girl heard them, but she did not care. She knew the truth of the galaxy. Masters bought, slaves obeyed, that was all. But deep inside, under layers of pain and silence, a small voice still whispered, why him? Why so different? As they walked through the night streets, she dared to look at him once more. His steps were steady, not rushed. His grip on the chain was firm but not cruel, and his face carried no hunger for power, no delight in control. She could not understand it, but she told herself it did not matter. She braced herself. Whatever kindness he showed now, it would not last. She knew the pattern. First soft words, then commands, then pain. The torches of the slave market faded behind them. The laughter of merchants grew distant. The girl looked forward at the dark road ahead and tightened her hands into fists. Her story was not over. It was only beginning, and she feared the next chapter would be written in pain. Yet she could not shake the strange feeling. Something was different about this human, and that difference scared her more than anything else. The girl's bare feet touched the cold metal floor of the ship's ramp. She had expected the human to take her to a cage, or perhaps a dark corner where punishments began. That was always the way. But instead, he guided her into a small ship that hummed with quiet energy. Inside, the air was warmer, Clean, not like the smoke and rot of the market. The ship smelled faintly of metal and strange spices. It was the first place she had entered in years that did not stink of chains and suffering. Still, she did not trust it. Beauty could be a trap. Comfort could be a trick. The human released the chain from his hand but did not remove the collar. "Sit," he said, pointing to a cushioned bench against the wall. Her body obeyed before her mind did. Years of being ordered had taught her not to resist. She sat, silent, waiting for the cruelty she knew would follow. Instead, he opened a storage box, took out a small packet, and placed it on the table in front of her. The scent hit her nose at once. Warm bread, something sweet, something alive. Food. She blinked at it but did not move. "Eat," the human said quietly. She stared at him, then at the food. Her stomach twisted with hunger. She wanted it, needed it, but her mind screamed, poison, trick, test. Many masters gave food only to pipus, niche slaves for eating it. Her silver eyes narrowed. "Why?" Her voice cracked, thin and unused. The human looked at her for a long moment. "Because you are hungry." Simple words, no mockery, no anger. She waited for the laughter, the cruel smile, but none came. His face was calm, almost tired. Finally, she reached out with shaking hands and took the bread. She bit slowly, expecting the sharp sting of pain or poison. Nothing came, only warmth filled her mouth. Tears stung her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. She could not show weakness, not here, not ever. The human sat across from her, not touching her, not rushing her. He only watched in silence as she ate every crumb. When she finished, he spoke again. "My name is Daniel." The girl froze. Masters rarely shared their names. A master was just master. To give a name was to give humanity. She whispered, almost without thought, "Why tell me this?" "Because you should know who I am," he said, "and because you are not property." Her heart skipped. Not property. The words made no sense. She lowered her gaze, shaking her head. "I am chained. You bought me. I am property." He leaned forward, his voice firm. "You were chained. You were sold. But not anymore. You belong to no one." Her hands gripped the edge of the bench until her knuckles turned white. She wanted to believe him, but belief was dangerous. Hope was dangerous. Hope was the sharpest blade of all. It cut deeper than chains. "You lie," she whispered. Daniel's face remained calm. He reached into his pocket and placed a small key on the table. Slowly, carefully, he unlocked the collar from her neck. The heavy metal fell to the floor with a dull thud. The girl gasped softly. She touched her neck. Bare, free. She had not felt air on her skin there for years. But freedom was a trick. Freedom always came before greater pain. Her voice trembled. "What do you want from me?" Daniel stood, walked to the cockpit and began pressing controls. Lights came alive. Engines roared beneath them. The ship lifted slowly, leaving the cursed planet behind. He spoke without turning. "I want nothing, only that you live." Her chest ached. Nothing? No one wanted nothing. No one gave freedom for free. She curled against the bench, hugging her knees. She thought of her homeworld, her family, the fire that had taken them all. She had sworn never to trust again. And yet, this human's words echoed in her ears. "You belong to no one." The ship cut through the clouds, stars opening above them like 1,000 bright eyes. She stared out the window, chains gone from her neck but still wrapped around her heart. Daniel glanced at her from the pilot's seat. "Rest. You are safe now." Safe. Another lie. She closed her eyes, but her mind whispered warnings. Masters were clever. They broke slaves with kindness first, then crushed them harder when the chains returned. Still, as sleep slowly took her, she felt something strange. For the first time in years, she did not dream of pain. She dreamed of light. But deep inside, fear remained. She did not understand him. She could not understand him. Why would a human buy her for 10 credits only to set her free? The question gnawed at her heart, and though she drifted into sleep, one truth burned in her mind. The human stranger was not like the others. And that made him the most dangerous of all. The girl awoke to silence, not the silence of fear, not the silence of cages where whispers meant punishment. This silence was different, calm, soft, like the ship itself was breathing slowly in the void of space. She sat up on the bench. The collar was gone, the chain gone. Only faint red marks around her neck remained, painful reminders of years she wanted to forget. Daniel sat at the controls, his eyes on the stars. He had not tied her, not locked her in, not even watched her while she slept. That confused her the most. Masters never gave freedom without reason. Here are we, she asked quietly. He turned his head slightly, his face calm as always. Far enough from Carthan 9. They won't follow us here. She hugged her knees, her voice sharp. Why save me? I am nothing. I am no one. Daniel leaned back in his chair. For a long moment he did not answer, then softly, no one is nothing. The words pierced her like light through cracks in stone. She wanted to scream at him, to call him a liar, but instead, her chest tightened, and memories began to bleed back, memories she had buried deep. Her home world had once been green and bright, forests with silver leaves that whispered in the wind, rivers that sang as they moved across the land. Her people had lived in peace, building no weapons, needing no wars. She remembered the laughter of her little brother chasing firebirds across the fields, her mother's soft hands weaving her hair, her father teaching her songs older than the stars. Then came the ships, not ships of peace, but ships of fire, black steel cutting the sky. They came with weapons, with chains, with hunger for power. She had been only 12 when they landed. The first explosions took her village. The soldiers marched through flames, capturing anyone left alive. She remembered screaming for her brother, but the smoke swallowed him. She remembered her mother's arms pulling her close, then ripping away when soldiers tore them apart. Her father, she never saw him again. She had fought that night, small fists striking against armored bodies. But her strength was nothing. They had dragged her to the cages, thrown her with others, and sold her from world to world. From that night on, her life had been chains. Her eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. You do not understand, she whispered. Everything I loved was burned. Everyone I loved was taken. I survived because I was weak enough to be useful, but not strong enough to die. Daniel turned fully toward her now, his voice low. That's not weakness, that's survival. She laughed bitterly. The sound was hollow, sharp. Survival is not living. Survival is waiting for the next hand to strike, the next master to decide how long you breathe. She looked at him, her silver eyes cold. And now you say I am free? Free to do what? Where will I go? Who will take me? I have nothing. I am nothing. For the first time since she met him, Daniel's face changed. A flicker of pain moved across his eyes, as if her words cut him too. He stood slowly, walked over, and crouched down in front of her. You think chains make you nothing? He asked softly. You think being sold makes you worthless? Then listen. Worth is not something they can take. It's not theirs to own. It's yours. She shook her head, trembling. You don't know. You can't know. Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked away for a moment, then back. You're right. I wasn't there. I didn't see your world burn, but don't think humans don't know loss. I've seen families torn apart. I've seen war turn children into shadows. His voice dropped lower. I know what it means to lose everything. His words struck her harder than she wanted. Could it be true? Could this human carry pain as heavy as hers? But she pushed it down. Trust was a knife. If she held it, it would cut her. She turned away, hugging herself tighter. It doesn't matter. Pain is all I have left. Daniel stood, his footsteps soft on the metal floor. He moved back to the cockpit and sat again. Then keep your pain, he said gently. But don't let it chain you. Chains can be broken. Her breath caught. She wanted to scream at him, to tell him chains never truly broke. Even without metal, the weight of them lived inside her. And yet the collar was gone. For the first time in years, her neck was free. Her heart warred with her mind. She told herself he was lying, that freedom was an illusion. But still, the thought lingered. What if he's telling the truth? She stared out at the sound. The stars, endless and cold. Somewhere among them, her homeworld was ashes. Her family was gone, her childhood stolen. But for the first time, she was not in a cage. And that terrified her more than anything. The ship drifted through the black sea of space, stars gleaming like scattered fire dust. Inside, the girl sat curled on the bench, silent as a shadow. She had told herself she would not trust this human, yet her eyes kept moving to him. Daniel worked at the control panels, adjusting levers and screens with practiced ease. He looked calm, ordinary, as if carrying a slave away from a market was the most normal thing in the galaxy. That unsettled her even more. Masters always showed their power. They barked orders, demanded silence, or struck without reason. But this one, he spoke little, moved gently, and let silence breathe. It felt wrong. When the hum of the engine softened, Daniel stood and walked toward the storage bay. She flinched, expecting punishment, but he only returned with folded fabric in his hands. "Here," he said, placing it beside her. She frowned. It was clothing. Clean, simple, soft. Not rags, not uniforms of slaves, but clothing that could belong to anyone. "What is this?" she asked sharply. "Clothes," he said, sitting across from her. "Yours, if you want them." Her heart pounded. No one gave slaves choices. The word "if" was dangerous. It tasted like freedom, and freedom always carried traps. "Why?" she whispered. "Because you deserve more than chains and torn cloth." Her throat tightened. She looked away, her voice bitter. "Masters don't care what slaves deserve." Daniel's eyes did not harden. He did not strike her. He only said quietly, "I told you before, you are not a slave." The words slid into her chest like fire. She hated them because they lit a spark she thought was dead. Hope. And hope was poison. She refused to wear the clothes at first. She left them folded neatly on the bench, glaring at them as if they were an enemy. But later, when Daniel had gone to the cockpit, she touched the fabric. Soft, warm, not made to humiliate her. Her hands trembled as she pulled them on. For the first time in years, her body was covered with dignity, not chains. When Daniel returned, he did not comment. He did not smile or congratulate her. He simply nodded once, as if it was natural. That silence confused her more than words ever could. Later, she watched him repair part of the ship. A panel sparked, tools scattered, and his hands moved quickly. She noticed something then. His hands were rough, scarred. This was no man of wealth or power. He had worked, fought, bled. Why would such a man spend his credits on her? Why waste his time on someone worth only 10? Her suspicion grew like a shadow. He must want something. All masters wanted something. When night came, he showed her a small chamber with a bed. "You can sleep here," he said. Her heart raced. A bed? She had not slept in one since childhood. She waited for his hand to close the door, for his footsteps to follow inside. But he did neither. He left her alone. She lay stiff on the bed, staring at the ceiling. The softness beneath her felt wrong, almost painful after years of cold stone floors. She whispered into the dark, "It's a trick. He'll take it away. He'll make me beg for it later." But no trick came. Only silence. Only sleep. In the morning, she woke to find food waiting again, warm, fresh, untouched. Daniel was in the cockpit, drinking from a cup, as if leaving meals for her was ordinary. Her anger burned hotter than her hunger. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded, storming toward him. "Food, clothes, a bed? Why? Tell me the truth." He looked at her, calm as ever. "Because you need them." "No," she snapped. "Masters don't give without reason. So what do you want from me? My labor? My body? My life? Tell me." Daniel set his cup down, his eyes locked on hers, steady, unflinching. "I want nothing, nothing but for you to remember who you are." Her breath caught, the anger drained into confusion. "Who I am?" she whispered. "Yes," he said softly. "Not a slave, not a price, not 10 credits. You are more than that. Always have been." Her chest ached. She wanted to scream, to deny it, to call him a liar. But deep inside, a fragile piece of her, small, buried but alive, wanted to believe him. And that terrified her most of all. She turned sharply, retreating back to the bench, her arms wrapped tight around herself. She whispered so quietly he could not hear, "You're wrong. I am nothing." Daniel did not argue. He only turned back to the stars. But in the silence that followed, she felt the weight of his words pressing against the walls she had built around her heart. Strange kindness. Dangerous kindness. It wrapped around her like invisible chains. Chains she feared might be harder to escape than the metal ones she had worn before. The ship sailed quietly through the endless dark. For a time, it felt almost peaceful, too peaceful. The girl sat near the viewing window, watching the stars slide past like silver dust. But peace was a fragile thing, and in her heart she knew it would not last. It never did. Daniel moved between the cockpit and the small engine room, checking controls, tightening bolts, making small adjustments. He worked with focus, yet she noticed the way his eyes flicked off into the scanners, as if he was waiting for something. She asked him once, "Why do you keep checking?" He answered with a single word, "Hunters." Her stomach twisted. She knew that word well. Hunters. Men and beasts who made profit from chains. If one escaped, they always came. No one left the market freely, not unless blood was spilled. That night, While Daniel rested in the chair, she stayed awake, listening to the hum of the ship. At first, there was nothing but the rhythm of engines. Then, a whisper, a faint, sharp tone on the scanners. She moved closer. The screen showed a red blip, then another, then three, following. Her breath caught. They had found them. She wanted to run to Daniel to wake him, but her body froze. This was her curse. Wherever she went, chains followed. He would die because of her. The scanner beeped louder. One hunter ship, then two. Their signals locked onto Daniel's vessel. She trembled. Should she wake him? Should she flee in one of the escape pods, if there even was one? A cruel thought whispered inside her mind. If you leave, they may chase you and not him. Her legs moved, carrying her toward the pod bay. She touched the release handle but stopped. Her hands shook. Would she really abandon the only being who had shown her kindness? Her thoughts tangled like wires. Trust was death, but betrayal was worse. Suddenly, Daniel's voice cut through the silence. They're here, aren't they? She spun around. He was awake, his eyes sharp, focused, not surprised, not afraid. You knew, she whispered. I guessed, he said, standing. They don't let merchandise go easily. Her chest ached at that word. Merchandise. Was that all she was? Even to him? What will they do if they catch us? She asked, though she already knew. Daniel's face hardened. They'll take you back and kill me. The words hit her like a stone. For a moment she could not breathe. He spoke them so calmly, as if his own death was only another fact. The scanners screamed louder. The hunters were closing fast. Daniel's hands moved across the controls, pulling the ship into a sharp dive. Stars stretched into lines as the engines roared. She was thrown back against the wall, clutching the edge for balance. The hunters fired. Bright streaks of light cut through the black, slamming against the shield. The ship shook. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Hold on, Daniel shouted. She gritted her teeth, holding tighter. Every muscle in her body screamed with old memories, chains, cages, running, failing, and always being dragged back. The hunters' voices crackled through the comm. Return the asset or be destroyed. Her blood turned cold. Asset, that was her. Daniel's jaw tightened. He did not answer. Instead, he pressed more buttons, forcing the ship into a hidden corridor of asteroid rock. The hunters followed close, their guns lighting the darkness. The girl cried out as a blast struck the hull, throwing her across the cabin. She hit the floor, pain shooting through her arms. Daniel was at her side in a heartbeat, pulling her up. Stay with me, he said. His hand gripped hers, warm and steady. For a moment, she forgot the pain, forgot the fear. His eyes held no cruelty, only fire. Why would he risk his life for her? For 10 credits? It made no sense. The ship shook again, another hit. Systems screamed warnings. Daniel moved back to the cockpit. If they board, we fight. Do you understand? She froze. Fight? She had never fought. Not truly. Slaves did not fight. Slaves obeyed. I can't, she whispered. Yes, you can, Daniel said firmly, not looking back. You're not a slave anymore. The words stabbed her heart. She wanted to scream, I am still chained, but the chain was gone. Only fear remained. Outside, the hunters' ships grew closer, shadows against the stars. Her body trembled, her mind racing. She had a choice now, run, hide, or stand beside him. Daniel pulled a weapon from the wall, tossed another toward her. She caught it with shaking hands. It was heavy, alien, cold. Her fingers closed around it slowly. For the first time in years, she held something that was not a chain, not a tool, but a weapon. And in that moment, something inside her shifted. The hunters were coming. Daniel was ready to fight, and she could no longer be nothing. The alarm wailed through the ship, a shrill cry that echoed off every wall. Red lights flashed. The hunters were losing in. Daniel's hands moved fast across the controls, pulling the ship into sharp turns between tumbling asteroids. Every move shook the hull, every strike from enemy guns sent vibrations through the floor. The girl gripped the weapon in her hands, her knuckles white. It felt wrong, heavy. She had never held power like this. She had only ever been held by chains. The comm crackled again, a cold alien voice. Surrender the girl, human. She is marked. She is ours. We will kill you quickly if you obey. Daniel's reply was steady, without fear. She belongs to no one. Then he cut the comm. The girl stared at him, heart pounding. He risked his life with those words. She wanted to believe them, but her mind screamed, no one defies hunters and lives. The first hunter ship slammed into their hull, forcing a docking clamp into place. Metal screeched as the enemy tore their way inside. Daniel grabbed his weapon, eyes sharp. "Stay behind me." The doors blew open. 3 hunters stormed in, tall creatures with armored skin and glowing blades. Their voices hissed with hunger. Daniel fired first. The blast lit the room, striking one in the chest and throwing him back. The others roared and charged. The girl ducked, covering her head. The battle was chaos, shouts, sparks, gunfire. Daniel moved like he had done this before. Every shot precise, every strike powerful. But the hunters were many, and more poured through the breach. One broke past Daniel, its blade raised toward her. She froze, her body locked in fear. She saw her old life again, chains, whips, cages, powerless, always powerless. The hunter's blade came down. Her hands moved before her mind did. She raised the weapon and fired. A flash of light, a burst of sound. The hunter fell at her feet, its armor smoking. She stared, wide-eyed, trembling. She had killed. Daniel glanced back at her, only for an instant, but his voice was fierce. "Good! Again!" Another hunter lunged at him, slashing across his side. Blood stained his shirt, but he did not fall. He turned, shot twice, and the a tour collapsed. The girl screamed as 2 more rushed toward her. She lifted the weapon, but her hands shook. The first strike missed. The second hit the wall. Panic surged. Then Daniel's voice cut through. "Focus! You are stronger than they made you believe." Something in his tone cracked through her fear. Her eyes narrowed, her breath steadied. She fired again, this time true. 1 hunter fell. The second staggered back as she shot once more. Her chest heaved. Her heart thundered. For the first time in years, she was not prey. The ship groaned as the battle raged. Sparks showered the floor. More hunters forced their way in. Daniel fought with fire in his eyes, but blood ran freely down his arm. He staggered, nearly falling. The girl's scream tore from her throat. She ran forward, firing wildly, pushing the hunters back. Her fear turned to fury, her weakness into strength. Every blast felt like breaking a chain that had lived inside her. Daniel fell to one knee, blood dripping. A hunter raised its blade for the killing strike. Without thinking, she threw herself between them, firing point blank. The creature collapsed, its blade clattering to the floor. She turned, grabbed Daniel's arm, pulling him up. "Stand, please." His eyes met hers, fierce even in pain. "You see now," he rasped. "You are not nothing." The word struck deeper than any weapon. She gritted her teeth, fired again and again, until the hunters staggered back toward their broken breach. Daniel slammed a button on the wall. The outer hatch opened, sucking the remaining hunters into the void. Their screams were silent as they vanished into space. Then, silence. The girl dropped the weapon, her body shaking. Daniel slumped against the wall, blood soaking his side. She rushed to him, pressing her hands against the wound. "Don't you dare die!" Her voice cracked. "Not after everything. Don't, Leah. For me too." Daniel's lips curved in the faintest smile. "You fought. You saved us." Tears blurred her vision. "I only fought because you—" Her voice broke. She could not finish. Because he believed in her, because he had seen her as more than chains. He reached up, his hand brushing her cheek, leaving a smear of blood. "No chains," he whispered. "Not ever again." Her tears fell freely now, hot and heavy. She pressed harder on his wound, desperate. "Stay alive, please. I'll fight for both of us." The ship drifted quietly once more, the breach sealed, the hunters gone. But the battle had changed everything. She was no longer the girl who braced only for pain. She had fought, she had killed, she had saved. And she knew for the first time that the chains inside her could be broken too. The ship floated silently in the deep void, its engines dimmed, its hull scarred from battle. Inside, the air smelled of smoke and burned metal. The alarms had gone quiet, but the silence felt heavy, filled with unspoken words. Daniel sat slumped against the wall, his wound wrapped in torn cloth. His face was pale, but his eyes were steady as they followed the girl. She moved restlessly around the cabin, searching storage boxes, tearing through supplies. Every minute she glanced back at him, her silver eyes sharp with fear. "Stop moving," Daniel said with a faint smile. "You'll wear yourself out." She glared at him. "You're bleeding. If I stop moving, you'll die." His smile did not fade. "You saved me already." Her chest tightened. Saved him. The words felt unreal. She had been the one who always needed saving. She had been the burden, the price, the slave. But in the fire of battle, she had stood. She had fought. And for once, she had been more than her chains. Yet now, with him wounded, fear pressed on her harder than any collar ever had. She found a medical kit, dropped to her knees beside him, and began to patch his side with trembling hands. The gel hissed against his wound, sealing blood and skin. He winced but said nothing. She will wash. Whispered, "Why did you do it? Why fight for me?" Daniel's eyes softened. "Because no one else would." Her throat burned. "That's not enough. You could have left me. You could have lived without me." He shook his head slowly. "No, I couldn't." The silence between them deepened. Her hands froze where they held the bandage. His words dug into her chest like fire. She wanted to look away, but his eyes held her there, steady and unflinching. For so long she had believed love was gone from the universe, burned with her home, buried with her family. But here, in the wreckage of battle, with a human bleeding at her side, she felt something she had not dared to feel in years. A spark. She turned away quickly, clutching the bandage tighter. "I don't understand you." "Good," Daniel said with a faint laugh. "Keep wondering. It means you're alive." She stared at him, torn between anger and something deeper, something softer. When his wound was patched, she sat back, hugging her knees. She stared at the chains still lying on the floor, cold metal glinting in the red emergency light. Once those chains had defined her. They had told the galaxy she was property, nothing more. Now, they were broken. Daniel followed her gaze. "You don't have to fear them anymore." Her voice was small. "But I do. They live here." She tapped her chest. "Even without the metal, I still feel them." Daniel's hand reached out, resting lightly on hers. "Then we'll break them together." Her breath caught. Together. The word wrapped around her like warmth. For the first time, she let her tears fall freely. Not silent tears of pain, but tears of release, of something long buried breaking open. She leaned closer, her forehead touching his shoulder. "I was sold for 10 credits. 10. Her voice cracked. "That was my worth." Daniel's hand squeezed hers gently. "No, that was their lie, not your true. Them." Her heart pounded. His words struck deeper than any wound. For so long she had believed she was worthless. Now in his presence she dared to think, maybe she was not. She lifted her head, meeting his gaze. His face was tired, scarred, but his eyes burned with a light she had never seen before. A light that told her she was not nothing. Something shifted inside her, something unchained. She whispered, "I don't know how to be free." Daniel smiled faintly. "Then let me teach you." The ship hummed softly as it drifted through the stars. The hunters were gone, but danger was never far in the galaxy. The girl knew this peace would not last. More enemies would come, more battles would rise. But for the first time, she was not afraid of tomorrow, because tomorrow she would not face alone. Her eyes fell once more on the chains, lying useless on the floor. She rose, lifted them in her hands, and carried them to the airlock. Daniel watched as she pressed the release. The chains floated into space, spinning slowly, swallowed by the endless night. Her shoulders trembled, but when she turned back to him, her eyes were steady. "No chains," she said softly. Daniel nodded. "No chains." She sat beside him, resting her head lightly against his arm. His breathing was slow, his body weak, but warmth radiated from him like a shield against the cold universe. And in that fragile, quiet moment, she understood something. She had braced for pain, she had braced for cruelty, but what he had given her instead was something far stronger. Not just freedom, not just survival. Love. The stars stretched endlessly before them, filled with threats and unknown dangers. Yet as the ship carried them forward, she smiled for the first time in years. Her story was no longer one of chains. It was a story of strength, of survival, and of the human who had given her more than life. He had given her hope, and hope, she realized, was the greatest weapon of all.